Сейчас через на станцию попал.
Это уже что? Это уже, по-моему...
In the pre-dawn darkness of January 18, 2025, Ukraine executed one of its most audacious and financially devastating drone attacks of the entire war. A single Russian fuel train, valued at over $3 million and moving deep inside occupied territory, was completely annihilated. This was no accident. It was a precision-engineered ambush targeting the very lifeblood of Russia's war machine, its fuel supply. Picture this, a massive train, carrying hundreds of thousands of liters of diesel, destined for Russian tanks, artillery, and armored vehicles, snakes through a narrow, isolated valley. It's supposed to be a secret route, a safe passage. But high above, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones are tracking its every move, locking onto its heat signature. What happens next is a perfectly synchronized AI-assisted FPV assault that turns the entire convoy into a rolling inferno. The explosions were so powerful, they lit up the pre-dawn sky, a sunrise made of pure fire. Shockwaves ripped through the hills as wagon after wagon was reduced to a skeleton of burning metal. This wasn't just a strike, it was a powerful statement. Ukraine demonstrated, yet again, that there is no safe place for Russian logistics. Today, we're going to break down exactly how this incredible operation unfolded, how Ukraine's tech outsmarted Russia's defenses, and why this single attack sent a ripple of paralysis across an entire sector of the front line. The story begins hours before the first explosion. Ukrainian intelligence, using a combination of satellite imagery and advanced machine learning software, detected unusual activity. They noticed that Russian logistics officers, desperate after losing numerous fuel trucks to drone ambushes on main roads, had rerouted a major shipment onto a seldom-used railway line. They thought the distance, nearly 70 kilometers from the front, would keep them safe from Ukraine's drones. They were wrong. Ukraine had significantly upgraded its long-range reconnaissance capabilities. Their AI was trained to track the specific heat signatures of rail engines and fuel tankers in real time. When analysts saw this particular train pull out of a major depot, they knew they had a golden opportunity. This wasn't just any cargo. It was a high-value fuel shipment specifically intended to support Russian mechanized brigades getting ready for a new frontline rotation. Destroying it meant stalling troop movements, choking off artillery resupply, and grinding their operations to a halt for days. To pull this off, Ukraine assembled a specialized drone team. Long-range reconnaissance drones were tasked with tailing the train from a safe distance. High-speed FPV drones, loaded with anti-armor warheads, were prepared for the final strike. And crucially, an AI routing system was used to predict the train's exact path and identify the perfect spot for an ambush. While Russia believed their railway was hidden and secure, Ukraine was already treating it as a designated kill zone. As the Ukrainian drones closed in on their target, a dramatic shift in the weather gave them an unexpected advantage. A thick blanket of early morning fog settled over the valley, creating a perfect cloak of invisibility. For the Russian sentries on the ground, visually spotting the incoming drones became nearly impossible. But for the Ukrainian drones flying high above the fog, it was a different story. Using their advanced infrared sensors, they had a crystal-clear view of the heat radiating from the locomotive and each fuel-filled wagon. The lead recon drone maintained a silent, watchful distance, feeding a live stream of data and precise coordinates back to the FPV pilots. The operators carefully analyzed the train's layout, the spacing between wagons, the distribution of the fuel, and the positions of the guards riding in armored cars at the front and back. Then, the train entered the trap. It moved into a narrow corridor flanked by steep rock walls and natural choke point. There were no escape routes, and the geography would amplify the force of the explosions. The Ukrainian operators knew they would only get one shot to trigger a perfect chain reaction. At exactly 6:41 a.m., the final command was given. The ambush was on. The first FPV drone came in low and fast, a hornet screaming just above the rails. Its target was not the engine, but the second wagon identified as the most volatile in the convoy. The moment it hit, the world tore itself apart. A massive fireball erupted, a column of flame and smoke shooting hundreds of feet into the air. The blast waved through Russian guards from their positions, shaking the very ground beneath them. But before the chaos could even register, the second drone struck. It slammed into the fourth wagon, detonating another colossal explosion. The two fireballs merged, creating a tunnel of burning diesel that began racing down the length of the train. In a terrifying chain reaction, several more wagons ignited almost instantly, each explosion feeding the next. The Russian crew scrambled desperately to detach the unharmed sections of the train. But the intense heat and thick, suffocating smoke made it impossible. Soon, the locomotive itself was engulfed in flames. Fuel began pouring from the ruptured tankers, turning the entire valley floor into a river of fire. What began as a single drone strike had escalated into one of the largest, most destructive train explosions of the war. Russia's response was futile. The single electronic warfare truck escorting the train attempted to activate its jamming systems. But the intense firestorm interfered with its sensors, preventing it from locking on to any more incoming drones. Infantry units couldn't get close. The flames were so intense, they were forced to retreat hundreds of meters away. At this point, Ukraine launched a third wave of FPV drones.
A Russian
These
drone
weren't
had
aimed
struck
at the
a
wagons,
passenger train
but at
at
the
a station
personnel
in
trying to
Ukraine's
escape
northern Sumy
and
region,
at disabling
injuring
the
dozens
last
of
few
people.
operational
President
parts of the
Volodymyr
locomotive.
Zelensky described the
When
attack
Russian
as brutal,
reinforcements
sharing a
finally
video on
arrived
Telegram
minutes
of a
later,
burning
they
passenger
found a
car
valley
and others with
transformed into a
shattered
burning
windows.
cauldron.
According to Zelensky,
Flames,
many
fueled by
passengers and
thousands of
railway
liters of
workers
diesel,
were hurt.
leaped dozens of
Regional
meters into
Governor
the air,
Obliterate
and the
confirmed
ammunition
that the
carried by the
drone hit a
guards
train
began
traveling from
cooking off,
Shostka to Kiev.
sending
He said
shrapnel
medics and
flying
rescue
in all
teams were already
directions.
on the scene
There was
helping the
nothing they
injured.
could do. The train, the fuel, and the railway itself were a total loss. Hours later, after the inferno finally subsided, Russian emergency crews were able to approach the wreckage. The scene was one of complete and utter devastation, shocking even by the brutal standards of this war. At least 9 fuel wagons were completely gone, their metal melted and twisted into unrecognizable shapes. The locomotive was fused to the rails. Debris from the explosions was scattered for hundreds of meters across both sides of the valley. Russian engineers quickly concluded that this entire section of the railway would require weeks, if not months, of reconstruction. But the financial cost, the $3 million up in smoke, was only the beginning. The strategic damage was far more severe. Across the sector, armored brigades that were waiting for that fuel were forced into a 48-hour operational pause. Planned troop rotations were abruptly canceled. Artillery batteries suddenly faced critical ammunition and supply shortages. For an entire segment of the front, Russian mobility and offensive capability had collapsed. This strike didn't just destroy fuel, it shattered Russia's operational tempo. More importantly, it sent a clear message. No Russian rail line, no matter how deep in occupied territory, is safe anymore. With these new long-range capabilities, distance has become irrelevant. This one Ukrainian drone strike has fundamentally reshaped the battlefield. It perfectly illustrates the new paradigm of modern warfare. Low-cost intelligent drones are consistently defeating high-value, heavily defended assets, crippling logistics, and forcing a global military power into a reactive, tensive posture across its entire supply network. The smoldering remains of that $3 million train are now a powerful symbol of Ukraine's ingenuity and its growing dominance in long-range AI-assisted warfare. And as this technology continues to evolve and proliferate, Russia is facing a future of deeper logistical chaos, more frequent and unpredictable ambushes, and escalating costs that it simply cannot sustain. If you appreciate these detailed breakdowns of real-time battlefield events and want more strategic insights and frontline analysis, make sure you don't miss our next video. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you're always updated, and stay with us as we continue to expose how modern drone technology is rewriting the rules of conflict. Your support is what makes this channel possible, and believe me, there is much more to come.